Good evening. The Cornish charity ShelterBox is part of a multi-agency effort to help refugees who endured years of fighting in the Syrian city of Aleppo.
You go into sort of survival mode where you're just trying to make sure you've got the basic necessities there. So you've got fuel for heating, you've got food, you've got somewhere just for shelter.
This is pretty much a good example of the kind of things that we're sending, which is water carriers, big thick thermal blankets, tarps and your Luminade lights. We are focusing on what the beneficiary wants, Syria being a unique case, in fact the conflict being unique and the conditions. So it's more portable kit, it's more patching up buildings, also responding to the heat issues that they need heat, so we're supplying heaters and increased thermal capacity blankets as well. We've already committed £1 million going forward this year for Syria and Iraq, but there are other Cameroon, Niger, Mozambique, Somaliland. It's not just this part of the world that we're responding to, but yes, Syria and Iraq, 1 million that we know about already.
What I saw yesterday in the mountains, I've never seen anything like that anywhere I've been with ShelterBox before. Obviously, every natural disaster is different, but to see landslips on those scale, you know, as I was saying, every 30 seconds looking out the car window there was a different slip, and in some areas just the scale of movement of the earth was absolutely unbelievable, and to think these things happened at night when people are in their homes in bed is just completely horrific. We haven't even made it down to some of the flood-affected areas yet because this is a very wide-scale disaster.
It's made the plea on World Refugee Day. Its staff are currently working in Iraq, where troops are attempting to reclaim the city of Mosul from Islamic State fighters.
I would just urge people to keep a focus on what's happening abroad, because this could feel like a million miles away to people back home, but it's not. And the reality is families here are just like families back home.
Chris Wareham is Chief Executive of the Cornish disaster relief charity ShelterBox. We know it very well. People love it in Cornwall. Can you talk me through, do they sort of phone you up? Will the Mexican authorities know about you and actually phone you up, Chris, and say, can you help? I mean, how does it work?
It absolutely varies in different parts of the world. I don't believe the Mexican authorities will do that, but in some parts of the world we get directly contacted by governments or national disaster management authorities, I suppose. But what we do is we have an operations team, we have a team that's essentially working 24 hours a day. They track what's going on. Obviously, an earthquake is a sudden event. Nobody can really predict it. So they will immediately start looking at data sources, looking at news feeds, and reaching out to all the contacts that we've worked with before.
First week was pretty hard. Then it got a bit easier after a few weeks. And then when this started happening, I just come here. It distracts you a lot.
Kids on the Green is run by volunteers, teachers, therapists, entertainers, even hairdressers. Children can play and be supported, parents can get some respite.
It is the most vulnerable of these nomadic farmers that ShelterBox is hoping to help, working with other aid agencies.
The water and the food element have been covered by some of the humanitarian actors. However, people are literally sleeping outside. And at the moment, that's in this incredibly harsh sun, and it does actually get quite cold at night. We're anticipating the GU rains, which are the spring rains, are going to begin in the next few weeks. However, that's not going to solve the problem.
So we're starting to give you self-esteem. We're allowing, it's not that we're there and doing everything, it's we're empowering these people. They're amazingly strong people. The people you've heard from today have been amazing people. We're there to give them a hand, to help them up. And ShelterBox is really lucky. We have both staff and volunteers who go out and help and work with these communities.
And just on the issue of access, I mean, given what we see, I mean, getting in and out, I just, planes are not going in. I presume, is it via sea that there'll be some access? How is that, do you think, going to work out?
It'll be a mixture, and it'll evolve over time. As we say, we have this second hurricane coming in, and that's the real challenge for us. And we also haven't seen the full path of the hurricane. So one of our challenges is limited resources, and you hinted at there's millions of people affected. And it's not just here, of course. You also reported on Myanmar, and Bangladesh has amazing flooding, and India's been really hit.
Millions displaced there.
There's real challenges, and we have a finite level of resource. By definition, we're funded by the public. That's how we get by.
The Southwest charity ShelterBox currently has representatives at the UN hub in Panama, where they're currently assessing where to send their aid.
Well, David George joins us now from ShelterBox HQ in Truro. David.
Yes, I'm standing here in front of the now familiar Cornish green shelter boxes that have been sent all over the world, of course. We'll find out in a few moments' time what the charity is doing to help victims of Irma.
So inside of here, there's different types of tools, fixings like nails and wire, and also 2 really strong tarpaulins. And with those and a little bit of timber, you can construct something like this.
You can build this kind of thing here. Now, you had these adverts in all the national press at the weekend. How well did you do calling for donations?
It's gone really well. So as always, we'd like to thank our incredible supporter base here in the West Country. So far, over 200,000 raised, but we're really hoping we can keep working on that to help more people.
All right, we wish you the best of luck with that. And, of course, the best of luck to the ShelterBox team that are off to the Leeward Islands. Well, they're planning that trip right now, leaving shortly.
The Category 5 storm has once again intensified. Winds now gusting at about 165 miles an hour. We can speak to Chris Warham, who's the Chief Executive of ShelterBox, international disaster relief charity currently delivering shelter kits to the affected island. My first question, I suppose, is, this storm is right there right now. So how much can you do at the moment?
It's really difficult. It's extraordinary that there's another Category 5 straight after Irma. We've got a team of around 10, 12, 13 out there at the moment. They've had to hunker down. The challenge is that all the things that you thought you knew change, because there'll be a lot of debris flying around. Some of the islands that were hit very badly have been hit again. So you've got to rethink your logistics. It's a huge challenge when something like this happens so immediately on the back of the other one.
So what is the first thing that they will be doing?
So they're in Panama right now, and it's really important. They're doing 2 things. They're connecting with other agencies, because we want to work together. We want to provide the most help for the most people. But they're also connecting with different audiences. So we're really lucky. We work with Rotary International, and they're really connected. So we get to tap in with them and go, what do you know that's on the ground? Connect with the different governments and check what they're hearing, so that we get to the most vulnerable people. And this is really important. There is a wide range of people impacted. As you said, there's 1 million people impacted. It's going through Cuba as we speak. We don't know what the outcome of that part of the disaster will be. And what we've got to understand is, where is our aid most needed? Who are the most vulnerable people? And how quickly can we get there?
And I understand your teams are in an area after devastation like this for anywhere between 2 and 6 months. So it's that initial getting people back on their feet period.
Indeed, we set no timescale to any disaster. We will stay as long as we're needed, as long as we think we can help. We can constantly refresh our teams. We have a lot of volunteers based in the US who are well used to working in the Caribbean. So the length of stay will not be an issue for us. Obviously, we're a charity and resources are limited, but if people wish to support us, they can find ShelterBox easily online, and the more income we get, the more people we can help in circumstances like this. And we are active at the same time with flooding issues all over the world in places like Nepal and Bangladesh. We have teams at the moment, so one mustn't forget that although the Caribbean is taking a dreadful hit at the moment, that there are literally millions, tens of millions displaced elsewhere in the world.
OK, Mark, thank you very much for talking to us. Mark Nicholson from ShelterBox, and good luck to your teams in the Caribbean.
Good afternoon. Workers from the Cornish charity ShelterBox have had to seek refuge themselves as Hurricane Maria continues to cause devastation in the Caribbean. They've had to move their aid into weatherproof warehouses to prevent it being ripped apart or blown away. The charity is expecting this latest storm to affect its operations for the next week. Well, joining me now from our Truro studio is James Luxton from ShelterBox. And James, what have your teams on the ground been able to tell you about the effects of this latest hurricane?
Well, as you said, the latest hurricane's having a massive impact across the region. To those, unfortunately, already affected by the first Hurricane Irma and affecting new islands not previously damaged to that extent, like Dominica.
ShelterBox now has 2,000 survival kits, including tents and other essentials, in Panama, ready to send to affected areas. But it says it doesn't want to put its own rescue workers at risk.
The interesting conundrum here is that not only has Irma laid waste to so many islands, but we have another weather system coming through, and it would of course be foolish to deploy aid where it's only going to be destroyed a couple of days later. So very difficult decisions are going to have to be made about where best to deploy aid.
You and ShelterBox are doing what you can to offer as much support as you can do. So just talk us through what you've got down here and how this system actually works.
What we try to do is to deliver everything that a family might need when they'd lost their home after something like a hurricane. Okay. So typically we would deliver a tent, a large family tent, capable of dealing with something like 6 people, or perhaps in cases where properties haven't been destroyed completely, we'll give a shelter kit which gives you tarpaulins, tools, roofing nails, tin snips, rope, the things that you might need to start rebuilding your house. But then beyond that, some things that we think really make a difference. Fresh water is one of the key issues in islands when these disasters happen, so we will deliver small water filtration kits. This little device will deliver enough water for a family for a month.
Wow.
And during that month you start to get things moving, one hopes. But then equally, all the power goes, all the electricity goes. So what about this? A fantastic little product that's inflatable, it floats. It's a solar light, it's relatively cheap, it's ever so light to feel, and we distribute those to families. Having that light really helps the process of starting recovery from these things.
And you said, you mentioned the word distribute there. What about distribution, and where are these kits now, and how are you going to get them out to the relevant islands?
Well, we always pre-prepare for these things, so we had something like 2,000 of these kits available in Panama. After Hurricane Irma came through, we started to get those into the islands, so we've got some in Antigua, we've got some on St. Kitts, we've got others ready to go. With Hurricane Maria coming through, we're just figuring out the right places to go. Dominica, I know, has been very badly hit. We're looking at the Dominican Republic as well. But the great tragedy is Hurricane Maria is now a Category 5 hurricane, so it's going to hit the British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, so there's some real challenges.
And what's the plan then of compiling more stuff to get more help and get, help as much people as possible?
Well, we're absolutely dependent on our fantastic supporters across Rotary movements across the world, as well as the general public. And it's simply the case of what resources do we have to ship kits out. We have equipment pre-positioned all the way around the world. So we're now, as soon as our team, I've got a team of something like 20 out there at the moment, as soon as they're able to travel around again, we'll start doing needs assessment and figuring out which islands and which places have been worst hit, and then we'll start to get aid out there, and that's the plan over the coming days.
Well, it's great work that you're doing, Chris. Thank you for coming in. Good luck to you, good luck to the rest of the team as well, and of course our thoughts are with everybody who's out in the Caribbean, especially at the moment.